Recording.
By now. Commissioners, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Is that Alan I see online?
Yeah.
All right.
I may have started a second.
Welcome to Zoom. Please press pound, then enter your meeting ID, followed by the pound sign again.
What's going on?
We hear everybody okay?
Yes,
You're
thank
moment
you.
on this room audio.
I can hear you.
All right, I think we're working.
All right. I'm going to call the Town of Newington Conservation Commission meeting for February 17, 2026 to order. First item on our agenda is the call to order. Next is our roll call. Would the recording secretary please take the attendance?
Yes, Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Bashand,
Here.
Commissioner Conway,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis, Commissioner Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Strinsky,
Here.
Commissioner Sadil,
Here.
Commissioner Paskowitz,
Here.
Commissioner Wimett,
Here.
Chairman Zellick.
Here. Dave, can you speak up?
Thought I heard a faint sound.
Commissioner Wimett? If you're online, can you speak up?
I'm
You
here.
see him online, Chris?
He is online.
Yep.
Not loud enough?
Is that Dave speaking?
He's-
Okay,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Good. Okay.
All right. Next item on our agenda is acceptance of minutes, approval of minutes from December 16, 2025. We did not have a meeting last month, so we're approving our meeting minutes from December. Any amendments or edits to the minutes as presented? All right, seeing none in the room, any online?
No,
All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in
Who
favor?
made the
say-
initial motion? I think it was Dave.
Dave,
Dave?
Dave.
You?
get, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's passed unanimously.
I
Moving on
abstain.
to
I was
next
not at the
item.
meeting in December, so I'm abstaining from the
All right,
approval.
one abstention from Commissioner Conway. So moving on, public hearing, we don't have any public hearings scheduled. Public participation on non-agenda items, each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. Anyone in the room wishing to speak? Okay, no members of the public wishing to speak in the room. Anybody online? Still nobody online, Chris?
Correct. Nobody attendees.
All right,
online.
very good. We'll move on to the next item, which is new business application IW-26-2 to extend parking lot approximately 180 feet and to add a retaining wall at the southern portion of the existing parking lot into the historic pad site at 2929 Berlin Turnpike in the PD Plan Development Zone. Applicant Berlin Turnpike 2929 LLC, contact NU Warren Esquire, owner Berlin Turnpike 2929 LLC. All right, and for the record, this is the third time that this application is coming in front of the commission. First time it was submitted last year in 2025 under IW-25-11. The majority of the commission voted against approval. We did not deny, we voted not to approve, as we found significant impact to the upland review area. Then again, the applicant came back to us with IW 25-18. We heard from them in one meeting, I believe it was December, and then they withdrew their application for an unknown or undisclosed reason to the commission. If the applicant is here, we go ahead and start the presentation.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Andrew Morin. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hinckley Allen of Hartford, Connecticut. Here tonight on behalf of the owner applicant Berlin Turnpike 2929 LLC. Joining me to my left is Mr. Francis Vodka. He's a professional engineer with BSC Group, Inc. To his left is Mr. Matthew Gustafson, who's our soil scientist and registered wetland scientist. And also behind me is Mr. Joseph Sulo. He's the principal of the applicant property owner. Real brief, I'd like to thank town staff for reviewing the application. He issued his February 2026 staff report, which we received in advance of tonight, which is also very helpful. Now, our presentation tonight will be about a half an hour, a little bit less. I'd request respectfully that you'd all hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Odds are, if there's a question that comes up, it will probably be addressed in our discussion. So if you'd stick to that, I'd appreciate it. Help us get through it smoothly. Before getting into the nitty-gritty of the application, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the history of this application and give credit to Mr. Sulo, the owner applicant. Since the fall 2025 application, he's taken steps to provide the commission with the information that it requested the first time around. He engaged Mr. Gustafson, the registered soil scientist and wetland scientist, to go out, examine the site, and study the wetlands and the watercourses functions. We also have a comprehensive and detailed wetland mitigation plan that we've proposed as an approval condition. We revised the civil plans. We pulled the northwestern parking area. It was originally configured as a corner in the northwest area. We pulled it back away from the wetlands. It reduces the height of the retaining wall. And importantly, we added a wetland enhancement. As Mr. Gustafson, Mr. Vodka will explain, we've added wetland enhancement features to add more protection to the wetlands. So Mr. Vodka, can you go to slide 2, please? A little bit about the site. It's about 3.5 acres, currently operating as the Casadoro restaurant. Surrounding developments include a nursing home and medical clinic uses to the north. There's the Berlin Turnpike, of course, to the east, and the various commercial uses to the south and west, a very commercially developed area in general. And of course, there's wetlands and perennial watercourses along and in the property on its western and southern sides. Now, the reason we're here tonight, we'll get into the regulated activities specifically in more detail later on, which is those within 100 feet of the wetlands. But overall, the applicant wishes to expand the parking lot further south to accommodate additional parking spaces that are desperately needed as the business is doing quite well. The parking area will be landscaped, will be fitted with a comprehensive stormwater detention system. And as you will hear, the proposed construction will not result in any loss of wetlands or the watercourse. There will be no direct impact, and there will be no impact to any existing function of either. So with that, I'd like to defer to Mr. Gustafson, who will discuss a little bit about the existing conditions of the site. Thanks.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Matthew Gustafson, registered soil scientist with All Points Technology. Been working in the state performing wetland evaluations, soil assessments, and compliance construction monitoring for over 15 years. So and we've generally set up the general framework and location of the site. I'll go to in a little bit more detail. Our singular wetland feature located on the property generally forms the western extents of the subject property. It approximates about 0.1 acres of wetlands along that western boundary, which consists of a well-incised perennial watercourse with a sandy, mucky bottom. Again, this is well-incised, located within steep embankments along both edges. Portions of it are well-armored with an existing retaining wall located along the southwestern banks of the resource. As is typical with watercourses in heavily urbanized areas, there is extensive existing disturbance located within and adjacent to the resource, illustrated by high amounts of litter, debris, and also large amounts of stormwater inputs from the surrounding developments, thusly impacting the various functions of this wetland. Most of the wetland consists of edge forested habitat with pockets and interior transitional areas of scrub, shrub, and emergent vegetation. The original investigation was performed on August 29th, 2023 by myself, and subsequently, as already discussed, this recent application reevaluated and found to be substantially consistent with that original delineation performed in 2023. To discuss the functions and values provided by this wetland, the function and value assessment is consistent with the Army Corps of Engineers guidance documents on assessing those functions and values provided by wetlands. In this case, all the functions and values were assessed, and generally it was solely found that this wetland supports the groundwater discharge and recharge function, as we've discussed prior. In this case, this wetland, because it is largely a connectivity conveyance feature between wetlands to the north and to the southeast, it is not really a groundwater recharge function. It is purely a groundwater discharge function. But again, because of the high levels of disturbance and highly urbanized nature of the landscape, this function was not found to be able to be supported at a significant level, therefore was not deemed to be considered at a principal level. Rather, it was limited to a secondary level. Again, kind of going through some of the integrity of the wetland in the upland review area. This resource is located within a highly urbanized landscape, development surrounded on mostly all four sides, heavily fragmented by Lewis Street to the north and Berlin Turnpike to the southeast. And again, there's high amounts of both human influence as well as stormwater impacts resulting from the surrounding landscapes directly discharging, resulting in thermal pollution as well as the physical pollutants associated with this typical types of landscape position.
I'd like to.
I believe I have one more slide, so if we can go to the next one. Thank you. Oh, no worries. To briefly discuss the upland review area that borders this wetland. Again, much of that upland review area consists of two different ecotones, one being the developed landscapes that we've already discussed ad nauseum. The second being some of the transitional edge forested habitat that exists both at the top of slope and in the transitional slopes down to the wetland. Species are generally dominated by mature Norway maple, box elder, green ash. There are some other species that are found as co-dominant or suppressed species within these transitional areas as they get closer to the wetlands. The understory is dominated by a whole host of invasive shrub species, including Asiatic bittersweet, multiflora rose, honeysuckle, staghorn sumac, being one of the lone native species that compromise some of the edges, and rubus, your raspberry and blackberry. that form along some of the edges. Again, similar to the wetland discussion that we've just gone through, the ability for this upland review area to provide significant value and function to the wetland is highly compromised due to the urbanized landscape fragmentation of this particular block of wetlands and edge habitat, as well as the high amounts of invasives found in the understory, and the high amounts of historic fill and activity associated with both this and the surrounding developments.
I jumped the gun earlier. Now, it's not Mr. Vaca is going to discuss.
So before you move on, this is not a question, but just for the record, you're showing a slide deck. Are those slides included in this packet, or is that a separate slide deck and has it been provided to the town engineer?
It's a separate slide deck, and we
Excuse me, but it seems I'm not hearing what the proceedings. I don't know if everyone else
We
online
lost
is having.
audio. Yeah, we've lost audio.
And they can't hear us. Hmm. Mr. Chairman, can you hear us?
At about what point in the presentation?
We're still not hearing.
We can't. There's an echo in your audio.
Someone's speaker is too close to their microphone is too close to the speaker.
I'm not hearing anything. Are you guys hearing anything?
No.
No.
Oh, shit.
No, we're not hearing anything either. I think they realize they're having some audio issues because of the feedback they were getting.
Can you hear us now?
Yes,
Is it still echoing? Yes, it is.
yes, there's still an echo.
But it should have been turned off. It's hard to get to from here.
Yeah.
David, can you hear us?
Not really. Bernadette, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave. I
that-
can hear us, everyone who's online, but we seem to have lost the meeting. And they were doing good.
I
Then for
know,
some
that's funny
reason
that it would.
the echoes happened, and then that was it. And I don't know if they can hear us at all.
I don't think so. And I'm not picking up any of the captions either. I'm going to log out and log back in.
Might as well give it a try.
No, why not? Well, that didn't work.
I was hoping they'd have to admit you, and maybe you can
No, they're just nothing.
let them know. Mm.
Hmm.
I don't know why we have so much trouble with the Town of Newington Zoom account or the
No,
technical issues, or every single meeting there seems to be some.
it used to be good.
It's there's been a lot of meetings where the tech is not good. I feel like we've had half-hour waits at some meetings.
Yeah. I swear I could get in my car and drive down there quicker than this. This new version, they don't have a way to text.
I know that the webinar, it looks like usually Zoom meetings, you can
There's
uh,
a chat button, you can chat at
do the
least.
chat,
Yeah.
the chat, but there's no chat or any messaging at all, which is frustrating.
That's peculiar.
Yeah, I don't know why they always seem to go with the webinar instead of a regular meeting.
Okay, yep, that's on you.
Magic touch, I guess.
Maybe.
Hold on a minute. So remote viewers, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, we're back in business. Thank you, Scott.
All right, let's get an audio check from the presenters. I want to make sure you guys can hear the presenters.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Check.
Okay, so
Okay.
we want to roll this back a little bit and tell us at what point you believe you lost the presentation.
It's when Mr. Vaca was about to speak. We got
Okay, so-
Mr.
so
We
we
heard
got
Mr. Cruz.
through- Right, we got through the wetland presentation. I had asked a question about the slide deck being passed to Chris.
That was
And
that was when the sound crapped out.
Okay, we're good. All right, Mr. Vaca.
Okay. Making sure everyone can still hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Francis Vaca. I'm a licensed civil engineer, licensed in the state of Connecticut. I've been doing engineering at BSC Group in Glastonbury, Connecticut for 15 years. I've been in this industry for 19 years. Tonight, I'm going to briefly go over the design of the site plan as in how it relates to the upland review area and the associated wetland adjacent to the property. The development that you see here is the proposed development associated with the extension to the parking lot. It includes the includes the proposed retaining wall, the new parking associated with it, and the landscaping associated with the new development. The green area that you see identified here is the improvements located within the upland review area associated with this development, which includes the removal of 16 existing parking spaces that are part of the existing site development. They will be ultimately replaced in kind with additional spaces to include a total replacement of 88 parking spaces located within the upland review area, again, associated with this green area. There is one of our 2 bioretention areas identified here. If you can all see my cursor, this is one of our stormwater treatment water quality areas, as well as a portion of the underground detention, which is this dark gray rectangle. I'm pointing it out with my cursor here, as well as the discharge associated with the stormwater detention area, which is on the left side of your screen, which is the southern portion of the site. I'd like to speak a little bit more in detail about the erosion and sedimentation control, especially in relation to how it associates with the adjacent wetland areas. So the dark line that you see identified here, which I'm going to highlight with this yellow line, is being proposed as a wood chip erosion tube, also known in the industry as a quire log. This is a much more substantial form of erosion control. The standard erosion control that is typical to this type of, or typical to projects you see, is either erosion control silt fence or a straw wattle, which is much smaller. This product is actually approximately 1 foot in diameter. It will be essentially blown in wood chip mulch that is inside a large tube-like sock. It has a much more higher level of filtration associated with contaminants or any sediment discharges. Once in the entire product itself gets wet after the first rain event, it creates essentially, it is not an impermeable barrier, but it is a much more substantial and much more able to withstand construction erosional forces associated with development, such as this. This photo actually identifies, this is actually a rather accurate representation of a potential project such as this, showing the disturbed area to the left-hand side of the photo with the erosion tubes set and staked down, and then the contained, in our case, it would be wetland area approximately 15 feet away from this boundary. I'll also talk a little bit briefly, a little bit more in depth when I get to this. Actually, I would use the next slide. So for the proposed retaining wall area, the retaining wall itself is identified here in yellow.
This is a cross-sectional view of the highest point of the wall. I'm going to go back one slide here. So the wall itself starts essentially at 0 elevation on either end of the wall proposed here, identified in yellow. It basically increases in height down to the highest point in this approximate location, height being about 12 feet in total. The average height of the wall is anywhere from 8 to 9 feet, but again, it goes down to 0 at those endpoints. The cross-sectional view identified here shows the wetland limit at the highest point of the wall. This is the vegetation that is in front between the wall and the wetland limit. The circle you see here is actually the erosion control tube that I had previously mentioned. The other erosion control method that I would like to clarify is during the construction of the wall itself, as you could see by the elevation of the wall footing, once this excavation is excavated down to this point, the structural measures for erosion control essentially are lower in elevation than the adjacent silt fence. So in other words, the adjacent erosion control measure. So in other words, just using gravity itself, anytime anything would rain, it's basically going to be contained structurally in a depressed area that essentially will prevent it from discharging any closer to the wetland area. These will be conveyed via temporary diversion swales that will essentially convey the water away from the wetland area to essentially a small sediment trap. Those traps can be pumped out to a contained sediment storage area or a dewatering basin outside of the upland review area or other specified location to ensure that there is no negative discharge in the direction of the wetland area. I would like to note that as part of the project, we did do a tree investigation. There were 53 trees identified that are 6 inches caliper or greater within the general vicinity of the project and also within the upland review area. Of those 53 trees, 25 will be removed to accommodate the development. However, we are replacing 12 of those as part of the proposed development in the landscaped area. As far as stormwater associated with the design, we are using a more forward-thinking and emerging technology for this. We are not using the standard catch basin and piping and detention system as typical. The blue areas you see identified here are erosion control rain gardens. Our water quality rain gardens, which is identified here by the graphic on the right-hand side. So instead of having the flow essentially discharge into a catch basin and in a pipe, basically enters this smaller structure and discharges to this landscaped area here, which actually is a treatment structure designed to treat all of the contaminants contained that essentially exit off of the vehicles and onto the parking area, and is much more, it has proven to effectively remove substantially more of the pollutants that would typically get into into a wetland system associated with a standard drainage design. The larger rectangular area here is the detention pond, and the detention basin, which is an underground containment area located beneath the parking, and this will reduce the impervious pavement. The flow generated by the increased impervious, essentially it gets reduced down to smaller than the existing condition. So essentially the flow that gets discharged from this development is less than what is currently being discharged from the site under the existing condition. A brief explanation of the low impact development design. Essentially the flow, instead of flowing into the catch basin, will flow into this smaller pre-treatment structure where it will discharge into what looks like a small depressed garden planted area. Essentially what this does is it will store the 1 to 2 year storm that houses the majority of the contaminants that come off of a vehicle. And that essentially top surface is identified here. And that water will filter down through this design system, which ultimately it is a bioretention soil that essentially has some organics associated with it that are specifically designed to treat the pollutants that essentially exit off of the vehicles. It is a green way to essentially manage all of the pollutants. So essentially the stormwater that is collected in the detention area identified here is essentially fully cleaned before discharging out of the system. Landscaping associated with the development, you can see the additional trees that have been identified and to replace those, a portion of those that have been removed. There's also substantial additional plantings that are provided throughout all of the interior landscaped areas. There are grass portions of the interior parking that will utilize a wildflower mix. So it's a low mow mix. They don't have to be maintained nearly as much as a standard type of lawn. And then the darker area that you see along the top here is actually the portion of the wall in between the wall development and the adjacent wetland, the adjacent area in upslope of the wetland. I added this photo as a clarification to show that the wall install can essentially, that impact area in the front of the wetland face is essentially very small, no more than 3 to 5 feet. So as soon as essentially the second layer of stones for the wall gets installed, they have the ability to stabilize the area. They can stabilize the area immediately with temporary measures, but after the first layer of stones are installed, they will immediately install erosion control seed mix, which essentially looks like this once germinated, as a stabilization measure to ensure that there will be no discharge of sediment associated with the wall construction into the wetland area. And then to essentially revitalize the area after the initial stabilization, we are proposing the installation of willow and dogwood live stakes to reestablish the tree cover and to counter the invasive intrusion. I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Matt to kind of highlight a bit more with regard to the stakes. But in summary, just to say the erosion control measures that are being proposed, as well as the stormwater design that we have developed for this site, in my professional opinion, will ensure that there will be very little, if any, discharge of sediments or contamination or anything of that sort to the adjacent wetland area. And in my opinion, there will be no negative impact to the wetlands associated with this development. At this point, I will turn it back over to Mr. Gustafson for more information on the mitigation plan.
Thank you. So to go into a little bit more detail as part of our mitigation to compensate for the unavoidable impacts to the upland review area, we're proposing a suite of measures. The first being the inclusion of a wetland protection program that will be implemented during construction. This protection plan includes elements such as contractor training to educate both the civil contractor and other workers as to the sensitive nature of the wetlands, the other measures that they will be required to adhere to during construction, and also to ensure that they are aware of the E&S controls that need to be installed prior to and maintained during construction. In addition, to provide secondary oversight, we're proposing as part of that protection program an environmental compliance monitor that acts as a third-party monitor to the construction group. They're tasked with ensuring that the entirety of the resource protection plan is maintained during construction. Erosion controls are maintained, and if any time there needs to be any modifications to adequately protect the wetlands, that the compliance monitor can make those recommendations and ensure they're installed. In addition to some of those measures, there's also some signage that'll be installed to remind workers, especially those as they get closer to the wetland, of the sensitive nature of these areas. A spill prevention plan on both to avoid spills as well as what to do in the accidental case of any small spills. So those are the measures, some of the measures that are detailed on the construction drawings to protect the wetland during construction. In order to mitigate for, again, some of these unavoidable impacts to the upland review area, we're also proposing an enhancement plan in the form of, as Mr. Rocca had already introduced, the live staking at the base of the retaining wall. Live stakes in the form of either woody willows and or dogwoods would be installed at a routine interval to help naturally repropagate and quickly reestablish native vegetative stabilization at the base of the wall, providing a more natural ecotone transition between our new wall interface and the existing wetland. All of those enhancements are proposed within the upland review area. Again, none of those impacts occur directly to the wetland. And the one, besides the actual stabilization and rapid stabilization that these provide, one of the other benefits of live staking is that they are highly adapted and tolerant of disturbed edges. Many of these species naturally propagate, especially in the case of dogwood and willow. One of their natural propagation methods is in situations like this where they'll break off of a host tree, they'll float down a stream or river, lodge in the embankment, and because of their rhizotomous growth, they'll be able to regrow. So we're just essentially simulating that natural pathway that they grow and utilizing that and for our beneficial purposes of establishing not only, again, rapid stabilization, but also providing some enhancement to the wildlife function of this resource and providing some, again, a more natural ecotone transition at the base of the wall. We can go on to the next slide. So we'll, again, to reiterate, I know we've said it a couple times, one of the significant and most important aspects of any project, and in particular this project, is avoidance of direct wetland impacts, in which this project has been successful in entirely avoiding direct wetland impacts. Again, because of the needs of the program needs of the development plan, impacts to the upland review area are unavoidable while maintaining those programmatic needs. Therefore, we are proposing impacts to the upland review area. Of significance, of course, is how these impacts may or may not affect the existing functions and values of the wetland. Again, we've kind of gone through that this function, the wetland provides very limited functions and values because of its setting, and, heavily impacted nature, et cetera. So in that regards, the proposed project is not anticipated to result in any significant negative impact to any of those functions. And affect all of the functions that it currently provides will still be maintained after development of the project. And in the case of some of the stormwater renovations and enhancements, some of those functions may actually be enhanced, particularly some of the wildlife functions and stabilization functions will be enhanced by our proposed renovations and mitigation plan. To very quickly go through kind of the tying back to section 2.1 of your regulations on the finding of significance. This project is not anticipated to result in any deposition or removal of material that'll substantially affect the wetland or water course. It's similar because we're not directly impacting the wetlands. There'll be no activity changing the natural channel of the water course. As we just went through, there's not expected to be any negative impact to the functions and values currently provided by the wetlands. And as Mr. Rocca has already stated, the activities during and post-construction through the stormwater plan and some of the other measures that we have proposed and outlined, there will be no turbidity or discharge of sediments expected to the wetland resources or pollutants to the wetlands. So, and to reiterate, based on a professional judgment of the project in combination with the proposed mitigation plan that we have outlined, it's my professional opinion that the project as it stands would not result in a significant negative impact to the wetland resource.
Thank you. I promised at the start to keep it to a half hour. Thank you for sticking with us. I think we're about there. I know I sound like a broken record, but just to repeat, there's no loss of wetlands here, no impact to the water course either. Briefly, feasible and prudent alternatives are not required here since there's no proposal or potential to cause any significant impacts to the wetlands and water courses. But in any event, an alternative would be to do nothing, but the parking spaces in the upland review area are really needed to accommodate guests, and there's no other place on property that they can be built. And again, there's no adverse impacts to any function of the wetlands or water course. Tonight you've heard a consensus of, wetland scientists and engineering experts, including your own staff, I might add, who have recommended approval of this application. And we respectfully request approval. We're available for any questions, but I'd like to thank you all for your time.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Moran.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with Mr. Gustafson. During your presentation, you said statement a couple of times, unavoidable impacts to the wetlands. You talked about mitigation and the plantings that would go in place, but what is the unavoidable impacts to the upland review area, to the wetlands? What is the irretrievable loss that's going to occur here? I don't see that anywhere in your report. If it is in your report, could you point it out to me?
Thank you. I do not believe we went through a discussion of alternatives in our report. The wetland assessment report was purely an assessment of the functions and values and existing characteristics of the wetland.
Right. But what I'm
per
asking
my-
for
again-
is a description
Yep.
of the loss that's going to occur to the upland review area.
So again, I think we've detailed the actual physical loss to the square footage loss of that upland review area. Again, in the perspective of loss to the wetland resource, it is our opinion that based on the currently provided functions and values of that wetland, there will not be any significant loss of function or value to the wetland due to the impacts to the upland review area.
Okay, so if you did provide that, can you point it out to me? Where is that loss pointed out? Where's the inventory of what's being lost?
Andrew Moran, for the record, in our review letter, we've outlined the square footage of disturbance within the upland review area. So I think when Mr. Gusson is saying that is where we're affecting the upland review area, it's the square footage of the area within the upland review area that we're disturbing.
Can you repeat that number? 33,190.
Thank you.
A little
Square
over
feet.
3/4 of an acre.
The 33,190 is square footage? Okay. And there's a retaining wall that's going to be built, and I'm looking at C-1.0, and there's a whole inventory of trees here. Those are proposed to be removed?
For the record, Frank Vaca, the trees that are proposed to be removed are identified on the erosion control plan, which I believe, I don't remember the number it is, but they are identified via X's on the plan. I also have it up on the screen right now. So there's a
1.1.
Yes, so there's a
Trees that are being removed.
trees that were identified are identified on the plan as 53, and then the ones that are identified to be removed are identified via the X's on the plan that the commissioner just mentioned.
Okay, so when you came to us in December, and this was under inland wetlands application IW 25-18, we asked you about the inventory of trees regarding cottonwoods, whether there were eastern cottonwoods or if there were the presence of any swamp cottonwood, which is a known endangered protected species. And at that time, you seemed to not be able to identify the difference, or you were unaware of the difference. So I kind of question, I understand you're a soil scientist and you're great at identifying soil types, but as far as the environmental impact, I'm a little concerned that you may not have the right qualifications.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So I think it's important, and by the way, I did review the meeting from the last time we were here. I think it's important when we're discussing wildlife impacts that we go back to the general statutes and what they say about the purview of the Wetlands Commission, which is specifically to examine the functions of the wetlands and the water courses to provide wildlife habitat. Now, you've heard Mr. Gustafson. He went out to the site. He observed the state of the water course there in the wetlands, and he noted that due to the disturbance, all the development around the area, that the functions of the wetlands and the watercourse do not facilitate wildlife habitat. So that is our point. And in other words, for the commission to deny the application, it would have to find that development poses a significant likelihood of impacting the wetlands functions of providing the wildlife habitat.
Right, but if you can't answer the question, does a particular type of tree exist in this environment? Then I become skeptical of the testimony that's being provided. So I'm going to ask for a third-party review of the site from Mr. Logan. That's what I would like to see.
And we'll give him a call in the morning.
And if I may, Matt Gustafson, while I've mentioned I'm a registered soil scientist, I'm also a trained forester. I'm also a wetland scientist. Wetlands in the state are not only purely defined based on soils, while that is the statutory in the state. At a federal level, they are defined based on soils, vegetation, and hydrology. As such, I'm trained to identify and very versed in identifying vegetation. To your point on the cottonwood, I took that note from the previous meeting and looked up the differences based on the assessment of the cottonwoods from my original assessment, as well as the notes I took on that day and the subsequent investigations. And based on the fact that a review of the natural diversity database does not have any known records of any listed plants or animals in the vicinity. At this time, I'm not aware of any of the listed cottonwoods that you're referencing being located on the site.
Right. I still want a third-party review, just to make sure that we're crossing all the Ts and dotting the Is. I don't want anything to get slipping by on this one. Mr. Vaca,
Chairman Delic,
just hold your question, Commissioner Paskowitz. Mr. Vaca, I'm hearing 33,190 square feet of disturbance. Commissioner Bashant, on the prior two times you were here, he asked how much fill you were going to put in for that retaining wall, and you were unable to answer then. How much fill is going in with that retaining wall?
Frank Vaca with BAC Group, the civil engineer. I did investigate that specific item, and for the project in total, there's a total of 2,600 cubic yards of material that is being added associated with this from the existing condition as identified to the proposed condition. But that is the entire project, not just the upland review area.
2,600 cubic yards. I said it would be in the thousands.
Okay, so that's fill.
It's a significant amount of fill.
Yeah. Is there any soil removal?
There would be distribution of material on the site. There would not be, to the best of my knowledge, any removal other than that which would be required associated with any of the installation of any of the utilities, in particular the detention system. So there will be portions of the detention system that will be removed associated with, 1 second, and I will identify the detention. So that portion of the detention system, and again, the design, I do not have the specifics of the detention depth in this, but there will be a portion of this area that would be considered removed. In this case, it will be essentially used as some of the fill material. So the number that I'm providing, the 2,600, is the total between the existing and the proposed. A component of that will be a portion of the material that would be removed for the detention area.
Okay. Any pollution remediation?
We are not aware of any. There has been, to the best of my knowledge, there has been an assessment. Was there an environmental assessment? We got an environmental report done. Right. And there was an environmental report done with the property, and there was no return of any evidence of contamination.
Okay. Attorney Moran, you filled out the application for the town of Newington?
Correct.
Okay, I just want the record to show that you neglected to cross out or indicate that there was going to be filling done. You indicated construction, but you did not indicate filling.
Apologies for the discrepancy.
Just want it noted for the record. All right, Alan Paskowitz, Commissioner Paskowitz, you had a question?
To you, Jeff, yes. You spoke about the cottonwoods and their two different types of species being either swamp or another. And my question to you is, if it was one particular species to be identified in record of protection, how is it protected and why are we going forth with asking for an evaluation outside of this commission review today?
So is your question, how do we evaluate whether this particular species exists or not?
No, whether or not it's a protected species that requires a third-party evaluation.
So is it?
I'm asking
Just restate your question.
I don't know how to put it any simpler than I put it.
I don't understand the question.
All right, the commission doesn't understand your question, Commissioner Paskowitz.
All right, you're asking for them to identify a specific cottonwood.
No, not a specific. I asked in that instance, but what else may there be in that area that we're unaware of? So that's why I'm asking for a third-party evaluation, since there is a significant impact to the upland review area.
What are you basing that interest in for the review?
I'm basing it on the site plan that's presented to us this evening.
Yeah, but what specific part of it in the inventory that hasn't been presented are you asking for?
The part that shows the upland review area and the statements that have been made that it's going to be completely deforested in order to build the project. Section 6.5 of our regulations protects a vegetated buffer area. It recognizes the importance.
Hasn't this been brought up in former meetings with this commission on this particular?
Yeah, it was, and that was one of the concerns for the commission not voting to approve the applicant originally.
If I may, swamp cottonwood is a listed threatened species in the state under the Connecticut Rare Species Protection Natural Diversity Database. Again, that how the Natural Diversity Database works in the state is they have records for known populations. In this case, we queried that database, and obviously in this case, as we mentioned already, no listings were found to occur within the premises of the site associated with this wetland resource.
Using known databases.
Known databases, as well as our investigation as
the commission is
like just trying to assist in answering the question.
But the commission is aware that the databases aren't accurate. They're only as accurate as the data that goes into them. So, and that data is typically reported by the public, and if the public doesn't report that particular species are seen in a particular area, then the database doesn't get updated.
That is correct.
Especially the swamp cottonwood, which we didn't know existed on our own Cedar Mountain and was discovered there.
Right.
So there is a history of it. That's why I think that's why you're bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, may I add something? We were talking about impacts to the upland review area and activity occurring in the upland review area. And I just want to make clear for the record that a wetlands commission cannot deny an application per se because there's activity going on in the upland review area. The purpose of the upland review area is to determine whether those activities will significantly impact the function of a wetland and water course. So I appreciate the concern about trees being cut down. But as you heard Mr. Vodka say, the applicant is taking a lot of time to develop these plans that we've submitted before you today that will stabilize the soil, prevent stormwater from eroding into the wetlands. So I just wanted to make that a point of clarification that these plans have been carefully engineered to, yes, while there is activity going on in the upland review area, that activity will not impact the functions of the wetlands or watercourse. Just a point of clarity.
Right, but the vegetative buffer.
That's your opinion.
That's your opinion. The vegetative buffer is protected. Under section 6.5 of our regulations, we protect vegetative buffers because we recognize their importance to watercourses.
Respectfully, Chairman Zellick, I have to disagree. A wetlands commission cannot deny an application for just a development within an upland review area. There has to be some sort of impact to the functions of the wetlands and watercourse.
Okay, well, we're going to ask for
the simple impact. The simple impact is the reduction of the buffer area and the increase in slope. And the area has already been heavily impacted by development. Not really great for the watercourse. Anything that cuts down that buffer area just makes it worse.
Thank you,
Inevitably. Though you make heroic engineering efforts within the retaining wall and other efforts around, the reduction of the buffer area will inevitably make matters worse in that area.
Well, respectfully, if I may, determining the impact to a wetland function and analyzing the civil plans and, analyzing their effect of reducing stormwater runoff. These are all technically complex matters that are frankly above, my head. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a wetland scientist, but I really think it's important for all of us to take a step back and consider that, the only registered soil scientist and wetland scientist in the room, to my knowledge, has, given his professional opinion that the functions will not be limited. You've heard Mr. Vodka explain how the stormwater management system will prevent any stormwater from entering the wetlands or watercourse. And again, to reiterate, Mr. Zabidio has reviewed these plans 2 or 3 times over and agrees that this application should be approved. So I think that's notable and something that the commission should give credence to.
Okay, so first of all, our staff shouldn't be saying or recommending that an application be approved. That's up to the commission to decide based on the evidence that is presented. Chris, looking at your report, this application was a resubmittal of application IW 25-11 and IW 25-18. Can you tell me what's changed in this application that's being presented this evening that addresses the concerns of the commission that were raised under those prior 2 applications?
Well, the primary change to the plan came in the first application where the wall design was revised. After that, it's more or less the same plan. The sticking point seems to be the, let's call it the intensity of the development within the upland review area. So the initial failure to approve, I believe, came from the lack of having the soil scientist present to speak to this, to the biology of the wetland. That's why the motion to pass was not successful, because Matt wasn't here to speak to the wetlands matters. With the second application, this is the same design as was submitted there. And notably with this plan, the way the stormwater that is within the retaining wall is being treated is in my opinion, a very interesting system. The rain garden and the way that is feeding into the detention pond, the way the detention pond outlets to the wetland down in the southeast corner. These are novel approaches to this, and I personally recognize them as a very good way of dealing with a parking lot situation like this. I would, if this ever gets built, use it as an example for others to follow. That doesn't really address the issue about the cottonwoods. Now, I can't really speak to the cottonwood. I wouldn't know one if it fell on me, to be honest with you.
And it's not limited to the cottonwood. It's the entire impact. I want an evaluation, an independent evaluation of the impact to the upland review area and what that potentially does to the water.
You asked from Mr. Logan.
Right. Because, I'm going through your report again, and the statement here, as proposed, it will require almost all the buffer trees on the property to be cleared along the southwest boundaries, all within the upland review. It will also require substantial soil disturbances on the hillside and very little room for additional E&S measures should a major storm develop prior to completion. So there's major concerns here regarding that soil disturbance on that slope in the upland review area.
So what that basically is saying is that when this gets to construction, that it'll be partly on my responsibility, and partly on Matt and Frank's responsibility to make sure that the contractors are adhering to the plans as developed, especially Mr. Gustafson's. What did you phrase them as? Environmental compliance. Environmental, right. And there's a notation in your plan for reporting on a periodic basis. We'd like to see as a condition of approval that also be reported to the town, not just to the owner, so that we can continue to monitor that. So the koi logs that are going to be used as erosion control measures are a very good product. They do work within the limits of what they're able to do. Our biggest concern, the reason for that comment there is we need to be diligent to make sure that the contractor does this. So whoever it is that Joe hires as a contractor has to make sure these are installed. We have to make sure that they're installed correctly. So that's the point of my comment. So this is a construction management comment more than it is a failure to design comment, that they didn't do their erosion control plan adequately. I think they did. It's important to note, though, that it has to actually get constructed in the field that way. And that's what I'm looking to make sure happens.
Good, Commissioner Ostrinsky.
How long, once construction starts, how long is it anticipated to take, and how often would the environmental monitor be on site?
With regard to how long the construction would take, the wall design itself, I don't have exact numbers, but it's one of those, as soon as you break ground for the wall itself, you want to get the wall built as quickly as possible, because that is essentially what's going to support the remainder of the construction for the property. So a wall of this size, in my professional experience, I have seen built in probably approximately 2 to 3 weeks for a wall of this magnitude in this size.
So the frequency of inspections is largely up to the discretion of the monitor. Typically, what we do on projects like this is front load inspections. Obviously, as the project gets built and as the retaining wall gets established and you're working in the established site, it becomes less critical and less concerning. So typically we'll do inspections either weekly or bi-weekly at the start of construction. And then those will typically feather out as the sensitivity to the wetland gets reduced. And usually it's no less than monthly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from commissioners?
I have a quick one. So I'm looking through your stormwater report. During your time being out there doing investigations, have you been out there kind of during the rainy season to see the water quality of that existing ditch, as it's called? I mean, does it experience a lot of turbidity because of the current slopes and the fact that you have basically a dirt and gravel parking lot at the top?
So to answer the first part of your question, in a review of my notes, I did not take any, I did not review any of the review of my notes. I did not make any observations on turbidity of the water. Okay. Subsequent inspections has not been at times where we've either recently had a rain event or during a rain event. What I can say is based on the observations of seeing the stormwater outfalls along the wetland, during my investigation, that it'd be anticipated that stormwater impacts, stormwater discharges from surrounding development are occurring to this resource, not only from the proximate developments, but from the surrounding landscape. But again, to speak to the turbidity after a rain event, I cannot say firsthand if I've seen that. I would expect it to be so based on landscape position and in reviewing other water courses similar to this and similar landscape positions. But no, I do not have any firsthand observations of turbid water within that resource. During my investigations, I did observe the condition of the water, and without doing water sampling or anything of that nature, just doing a visual observation, frankly, sniffing the water, you can, there is a odor to it at times. As you can expect, delineating a resource like this, there is no real banks to walk on. So unfortunately, to delineate this resource, I walked in the middle of it all the way up and down. So I'm very intimately familiar with the condition of the water firsthand. My wife is as well, with the condition of my boots that came home that day. And she can probably attest to the odor as well at that time. So there's obviously stormwater inputs here that are affecting the water quality of this resource, both from a pollutant standpoint, but as well as a thermal discharge and impact to this resource.
Right. I'm going to go back to the engineer's report. The last statement in here is a point of interest. The commission has asked a number of questions regarding the potential future structure in the area of the expanded lot. A future use will require an application to the commission for proximity to the wetlands in the upland review. This should not have a bearing on the application as submitted. I'm going to not contest that, but I do have a point of view and opinion on this, that this application is being presented as a request for a parking lot. But the real request here, and my sense is that some of the commissioners feel the same way that I do, that the real ask here is not for a parking lot, but to expand this pad site to its maximum capacity for future development. So we heard that come out in the prior two applications. It's borderline misrepresentation of the intent of the use and purpose, in my opinion. I can't say that that's exactly what you're doing, but it sure feels like that's what you're doing.
May I respond?
You may.
So the application you have before you tonight is exactly what it is. The regular activities we're proposing are what they are. And if there's any deviation from what's on the civil plans before you today, if we propose a deviation from them, we'd have to come back before you for that approval. So I can't speak to any nefarious intent that you're suggesting. I think it's completely unfair and unfounded. But if there is a change in the civil plans that's before you today, we will be right back at it.
Commissioner
I
Bouchard.
don't think he's referring to a change during construction. We're talking about in the future. So you have on your application, on the plan here, it says parking extension. So that's the only thing that we're being told that it's going to be used for. We have no way of knowing what it could potentially be used for in the future. Yes, you'd have to come back, but it's all, the infrastructure is all done already. So, but again, that's not even my biggest concern. I have a few questions.
Yeah, and to kind of support, I want to ask, I saw a slide where it showed the lot, and it looked like it was after this major snowstorm we had. It didn't look like the snow was cleared, and it didn't look like anybody was parking on the site. So are you not using it now for parking?
The lot itself?
Yeah. Because I didn't see any cars in that picture. I just saw a pad site with snow on it.
I was there today. It is plowed.
It is plowed, and they are using it for parking?
I was there on 124, which was just a couple Saturdays ago.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, not only was that entire area packed, there was cars pretty much trying to park on the Berlin Turnpike. To me, it was a very big public safety hazard at this point.
There was no cars when I was there today, and it didn't look like a lot of traffic on the gravel. I didn't see it when you saw it, but
Yeah, I mean, I was there.
I glance over every time I go by.
Yeah, mine
I'm gonna
was
say a difference between a Saturday and a Tuesday night.
Saturday night, and I'm sure the employee parking down at Price Chopper was packed, but I was like, this is insane. It took me 20 minutes to find a parking spot. Yeah, it took me 20 minutes to find a parking spot.
If I may just redirect, I think we're getting into more of a zoning compliance and a zoning issue. If there is in fact some sort of zoning issue, that would be the purview of Mr.
It's not
Dixon.
zoning, it's the necessity for the use. Can I go with my question?
Go ahead.
So you originally started your speech or whatever with, you said there was changes to the northwest corner. Did you mean the northeast or the southwest, or what were you talking about?
So looking at it from the southwest, apologies, yes, southwest.
What changes were those?
The original, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vecca, but the original design was more of a pointed corner rather than, so some spots were eliminated.
There was, to clarify for the record, and I'm pointing to the screen right now, the first iteration that we had come to the commission, there was an angle here. So the curve that is identified, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong plan here. So the curve that is now currently in front of you as part of this application, this was originally a straight line to an angle and then another angle, and there was substantially.
This is the same that we saw with your last.
This is the same that you saw with the last. Yes, that is correct.
This is the same plan that was not approved previously. So there's no changes.
So if I can keep going, I was there today, and have any of you been there with the winter conditions?
I've not seen it recently.
Okay. So they're pushing the snow over the guardrail, the entire length of the property. So that's going to continue to happen because it's adorable, this little spot you have here for snow storage. But if you look there now, and you could see that the snow is going over the guardrail the entire way, and that guardrail is what, 15 feet away from where your new guardrail is going to be. There's also a lot of garbage. I think it was probably picked up with a loader, maybe unintentionally, but dumped over the guardrail and all the way down the hill. A lot of it's just plowed up to the guardrail and pushed over with a plow, but there's one area closer to the building that looks like it was done with a loader. It was picked up, dumped over, well over the embankment, with a bunch of milk cartons and other trash, newly deposited trash. It may have been probably was unintentional. But, so, for that reason, and, there's no way that you're going to avoid putting snow over that embankment. So these little spots that you have for snow storage are the space of 2 cars, and that's not going to do anything with a large snowstorm. But also I'd like to ask, what is the closest that the wall comes to the property line on that west side?
Well, if I may, as the applicant, we're entitled to a presumption that we're going to comply with our site plan. So if we show snow storage areas.
Yeah, but I'm telling you what's existing right now without even this expansion, so.
I understand your point with about existing conditions, but I just want to, bring it back. This is exactly why we're here. The parking lot as it currently operates is not functional, which is why we have taken the time to develop these plans to do better, to develop these complex and sophisticated stormwater management systems to have a fresh start and have a more operational and better functioning parking lot. So yes, I agree with you. There's problems with as it is currently, but we're here to make it better. So I'll give it to.
I understand your concerns with regard to the snow storage. The snow storage that is identified on here is a standard size snow storage that would be typical for a standard storm associated with the Connecticut. The storm that we had 3 weeks ago is not a standard storm that is anticipated. And if we were to design a development associated with the storm that we had, there is not space available to do it. In fact, yesterday I went to the supermarket over in West Hartford. They have taken up approximately, I would say, 40 spaces with the stockpile that they're using for the snow. There is no place to put it. I have spoken to the owner of the site. He does have a number of other sites in town that he would have the ability to remove larger portions of snow in the event of a storm such as this magnitude. So we've already discussed potential situations because there seem to be larger and larger events of this magnitude to handle. We do have a potential solution to that. What is identified on the plan is an approximate size given a standard snowstorm in Connecticut.
I just don't think anyone's gonna haul snow off site when you have an embankment to dump it over, and that's what's happening now. So there's no way to tell how that would ever, dash out. But,
Commissioner Bashan, we're not here to make assumptions. We have to remind you that.
I'm not making
here to make
assumptions.
assumptions.
I'm
Commissioner Paskowitz, please do not interrupt the commissioner when he's speaking. You'll get your turn.
That's not an assumption, it's
he's
an observation.
interrupting without asking.
Would you mute him,
before
please?
as well.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just saying, that wasn't an assumption, that's my observation, so it's tempting. I would probably do the same thing. I'm a contractor myself, so when there's a hole, people tend to fill it, so. Anyway, you mentioned a couple times that there's no loss of the wetland. So technically, there's no loss of wetland, but there's a major loss of the regulated area. And I think Mr. Morris put it in the simplest and most elegant way. It's the lowest common denominator, that when you remove the buffer, you are affecting the wetland. So I'm still where I was 2 applications ago, 1 application ago. It needs to be pulled back, in my opinion. You're gonna lose 20-something spaces. If you kept it with the curb in the existing parking lot, you lose 1 row of parking. So it's like 25 spots or something. That's just an opinion. We can't tell you what to do, but I would be much more comfortable seeing that than what I'm seeing now.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions?
Mr. Paskowitz?
No, I want to go to Commissioner Strinsky, who's been patiently waiting.
Yeah, so just something I was wondering, with a drainage system like this that you're planning on installing, the whole stormwater retention, all that, what is the anticipated, have there been any studies or anything on the water quality coming out there? Any contaminants that make it through, turbidity, things like that? Especially compared to like just a regular outfall that you kind of guys have out there now? Not you guys, but generally dumping into that.
A focal point of biofiltration, a focal point is a proprietary system. It's personally, in my opinion, one of the best systems out there. Essentially, there have been countless studies that have been, collegiate studies. There's actually one study in particular. It's called NJCAT. It's an acronym, but it's a New Jersey-based study that is specific to the turbidity, the sedimentation that essentially comes out of a system associated with water quality treatment. That system essentially it's the most stringent and the most widely recognizable. It's typically used mostly for hydrodynamic separators. A hydrodynamic separator is essentially the non-green version of this design. So basically you have a catch basin with pipes and a detention system, and to treat the water quality, you swirl the water around inside this chamber and it collects a lot of the sediment. The sediment filters out, you collect the oils, it collects the trash, and so on. So instead of using that type of system and achieving an 80% TSS removal, total suspended solids removal, you're using this product instead. So instead of swirling it around, your initial flush comes off through this pretreatment structure, which basically collects all of the trash, collects all of the first portions of the sediment. It gets discharged into this depressed area. This depressed area, the type of plantings that are proposed in here and the type of media that is designed associated with this, essentially those plantings actually use those pollutants as nutrients. So they basically absorb all of the nutrients. the plants end up thriving, and then you've removed all of those pollutants from your system. This media it's essentially gravel with some organics mixed into it. And the way that those organics function is that the pollutants associated with the contamination essentially are absorbed by the organics, and they basically eat those pollutants. And they're essentially, it's self-healing. So it continues to thrive and essentially absorb all of those contaminants prior to its discharge into the detention system. So essentially, this product itself is basically it's almost like a symbiotic system. And the end result is some of the cleanest discharge water that you would get from a system of this size in New England. And there are a number of these systems that have been installed throughout New England. And the number one reason why I push for these systems is they have a guarantee. So they will test the water, and if they are not achieving their standards, they will modify to ensure that they get the standards that are originally approved for this product.
It was that medium that does all that miraculous work. It's some type of a natural material?
Yes, it's just stone with some organics in it. And basically the way that it works is with the plants and with the organics, they react with the pollutants, and they essentially, what's that?
The expected pollutants.
Yeah, the expected pollutants you would get, the nitrogen, phosphorus, all of those things. Basically, there are certain types of plants and certain types of materials that basically use those as nutrients, and they get absorbed.
And normally all that would just, in a regular storm drainage system, just get dumped into the wetland, right?
You still, Frank Vaca, engineer, you're still required to achieve the water quality standard, which is 80% total suspended solids removal. You can achieve that through the use of these hydrodynamic separators, but all they are trying to hit is that 80% mark, whereas something along these lines go substantially beyond that.
Yeah, just to clarify, as the soil scientist, I have some intimate knowledge of how some of these things function from a chemical and biological standpoint. The special sauce of the soil media, and this is a fairly common misconception of the term, it's not actually absorption, it's adsorption with a D. How soil particles work in context with these pollutants is
puts off something, you're saying?
The soil particles have a surface associated with them. Larger soil particle surface, the more that things can stick to it, depending on the characteristics of that soil. So by adding in those organics, you're making a much smaller surface. The finer the material, the more surface area there is, the more capacity there is for the soil to adsorb that material, whether that's contaminants, whether that's, again, TSS, whether that's phosphorus, whatever, heavy metals, whatever it may be. At that point, the key characteristic of these systems is not only the plants, but their symbiotic relationship with microbial communities. So because these contaminants are allowed to adsorb to the soils and are allowed to sit there, it then allows the microbes to transition them to forms of things that the plants can then uptake, because plants don't naturally uptake this. So you stick a bar of iron in your landscape, plants aren't growing on top of that. But if you have it in a system where your microbial community can break that down and make it bioavailable to the plants, which is how these systems generally function at a very base level, that's kind of the special sauce here.
These systems have been around for over 20 years, but the reason why that they have not been focused on so much is because there was a large amount of maintenance associated with them. One of the main reasons why these are getting as effective, based on the explanation you heard from Mr. Gustafson, is that because they basically create a community and it's basically just a system and it continues to heal itself, the maintenance on these are substantially lower than ever have been in history. Essentially, the maintenance associated with this particular product is the 3 inches of mulch that you see on top. This gets replaced once a year. That's effectively the maintenance associated with this entire system.
And that's the feed or the biofeed that it needs moving forward, almost like a septic system in a very crude way.
Yeah, it's essentially, a more direct comparison is kind of the sump you'd put on a catch basin. You have to clean out that sump. periodically. The filter material on the top is your sump of this. That's what's taking out the highest, the most coarse level of products. One of the other important, I think, reasons why these things you typically don't see them is because they take up aerial space. Frank and Mr. Vaca's point before, when you use a hydrodynamic separator, you have a little catch basin, you stick it underground, you have all that developable space above ground. You're not losing it to these green features, which is why a lot of standard developments typically don't use these. This application is giving up that space to try to enhance and improve the stormwater conditions, but also some of the habitat value that these little islands provide, using native plantings, using natural soil media. So again, trying to enhance those areas both in the upland review area and as well beyond the upland review area.
If I may just kind of tie together what Mr. Vodka and Mr. Gustafson just said in response to one of the statements I heard from the commission was that if it's true that any disturbance in the upland review area automatically means that it's going to impact the wetlands, then everything you just heard is useless. It wouldn't make sense to do. The purpose of all of this engineering is for us to prove as the applicant that the work in the upland review area can be done without disturbing the wetlands. So that's just a quick point I wanted to raise and why it's important.
I'm going to address that because I don't think the commission said that any disturbance is going to impact the wetlands. I believe there's the potential for impact to the wetlands if there's a disturbance in the upland review. That's the commission's concern.
Elimination.
Right. There's not an automatic impact if there is a disturbance. We absolutely did not say that.
And can I just get your answer again? Did you ever say how close the retaining wall was at the closest point to the to the property line? I may have interrupted you or didn't hear it.
You lost it.
Yeah. Looks like it's within a couple feet at the closest.
The property line is on this plan that you're looking at here. The property line is the gray line that you see in this area. I think the closest that I would have the limit of work is identified at 5 feet, which is the dashed line that you see here. I don't have the exact measurement on hand, but I believe at the closest we are probably within 8 to 9 feet of the property line. But I would have to get the exact dimension on that.
Any other questions, Commissioner Bouchon?
No.
Commissioners online, any questions for the applicant? Well, we have them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Commissioner Siddell.
Thank you. I got a few questions for Mr. Vaca and then for Mr. Gustafson. Mr. Vaca, can you summarize the improvements to this plan? You talked about the radius there in the northwest corner of the property. Can you summarize in a nutshell the improvements since the plan we saw back in December? Can you go over those one more time?
For the record, the plan that was submitted in December is the same plan that is submitted today.
Okay.
We have added there was a request from or I should say a recommendation from the town engineer that a turbidity curtain get added in the wetland portion prior to it exiting the property, and we have added the turbidity curtain into the erosion sedimentation control plan.
Okay, but nothing as far as pulling anything back. I thought I misunderstood from when you started your presentation about moving that line back away from the edge of the wetland. That's not the case.
The comment that was originally made was addressing the first iteration, which was the angled wall that was originally presented. That has been pulled back to the radius, but the radius that occurred prior to the December submission.
All right. Relative to the wall to the edge of the wetland, not the property line, but to the edge of the wetland, you had your little sketch there, a cross section of the wall. What's the scale on that? Has not changed, but what is that distance between the edge of the wetland to the foot of the wall?
The narrowest part between the wall and the wetland at the highest point is 12.32 feet. That is the narrowest point, and that is only identified in this, if you can see my cursor, identified in this area here. It expands as we head to the north, and it expands substantially more as we head to the south and the round to the east.
Relative to the wall itself, on the parking lot side, how high is that wall going to be?
The highest point of the wall is 12 feet from the, I'm sorry, if the parking lot side, if the parking lot side is only, I'll go to the parking lot side is only going to be approximately 6 inches.
6 inches. Okay. But when I look at the wetland side, it's going to be variable. Like you said, up to 12, it's going to be a gradual incline or decline, whatever you want to call it, right?
That is correct.
Okay. You mentioned about the you're taking away the trees, but what about, is there a planting plan to replace besides the live staking? Are there any other tree plantings planned? And if they are they on a plan that the commission can review? I see the one with
Yes.
Xing out, but where is and I'm talking about the buffer. I'm not talking about the parking lot per se. I got the parking lot, but in between the wall, and we talked just now between the base of the wall and the edge of the wetland, are there just going to be live staking there? Or will there be some other plantings of trees?
We are.
Was that
I'm
Mr.
gonna hand it over.
Gustafson's question? Is that a
Yep,
question?
I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Gustafson.
To simply answer the question, yeah, that is correct. The sole plantings that are proposed are the live stakings. I think we went through this a bit last time, but I'll reiterate it for the record. The live stakings, while they start as fairly small, 3 to 5 foot stakes, these species at maturity can grow upwards of 15 to 18 feet. And in this location, it would be expected to attain close to that maturity height. So these are not like to kind of go to, I think, the impetus to your question on, we're cutting trees, what are we replacing them with? In this case, the shrubs are, while not full grown trees, which would be largely unsuitable for this location because of the proximity to the wall. They are, the replacement or the mitigation in the form of live staking are far more substantial than, a standard shrub that may not attain the heights that I kind of previously mentioned.
Well, how long could this live stake get established? You put it in the ground, it needs time to assess itself, get into the ground. How long does that take before it becomes vulnerable? You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And again, Matt Gustafson, for the record, one of the benefits of these live stakings is they very quickly establish. They certainly won't attain their mature height, immediately, but they will immediately start to sprout at their base to establish that stabilization on the root of the soil surface. At that point, these species, again, I mentioned previously, they are adapted to kind of grow in these situations. They are adapted to riparian systems, which are naturally in flux due to flooding regimes, disturbance of the banks, etc. So these things will very quickly establish and grow in past projects under ideal circumstances. You can see them reach maturity in 3 to 8 years, somewhere in that range, more than likely. Again, some of the installation would be monitored by the as part of the wetland protection plan to ensure they're installed properly at the right time of year, etc. In addition, to help with the immediate stabilization, as we've already mentioned, we are proposing a seed mix in that area that's suitable for wet sites with naturally sourced seed stock and genome. We specified a seed mix produced by New England Wetland Plants, which is one of the premier vendors of native, not only native species, but native genome seed material in the Northeast.
Now, is that seed going to be in addition to the live staking in the areas we're looking at right now?
That is correct, yes.
And how high does that grow, and how long does that take to get to establish? I'm looking for months, years, how vulnerable before you actually get true stabilization.
So the seed mixture in itself, there is a suite of species. Some of them are very rapidly germinating. Some of them will take a little bit longer. They all establish within a single growing season, which we'd expect. So if you stretch this out, if we seed it in the spring, you'd expect stabilization prior to the fall. Similarly, if you seeded, essentially within one growing season, you're going to expect stabilization of the soil surface on a permanent basis, but you'd expect temporary stabilization within 4 to 6 weeks under good conditions.
One more
Frank
question.
Vaca,
Go ahead.
one second, Commissioner Siddle and Frank Vaca, for the record, as part of our erosion and sedimentation control plan, any temporary stabilization measures in the form of jute matting or any type of temporary measure it's a mandatory requirement associated with our erosion and sedimentation control plan for those times at which, if you're waiting for a temporary seed mix to germinate, you can't leave any bare areas just open, especially in the general vicinity of a wetland area. So anything that is essentially bare will be stabilized with some form of natural temporary stabilization mat of some type prior to the temporary or permanent seed mix.
And just to finish that thought and point, will be one element in addition under the wetland protection program. The compliance monitor is responsible for monitoring for that. To Frank's point, if the seed is not establishing or the controls that are currently installed are not adequately protecting the wetland or stabilizing the soil surface at that point, recommendations would be made to provide additional measures, whether that's in the form of, as Mr. Vaca had said, jute matting or any other suitable alternative to provide that protection. The duration of the compliance monitoring is not completed until all stabilization measures have been completed, the soil surface is permanently stabilized, and all elements of construction have been completed. So you have that oversight for the duration of this until all of those measures that we've mentioned have been established.
Now, once that is established, how accessible are those areas going to be? Right now, they're not very accessible now, but once this is in full swing, we will not be able to get into that area whatsoever. Is the accessibility going to be worse than what it is today?
Matt Guston again for the record. I won't speak to the individual accessibility. The intent of the plan is to access it by foot, which will still be able to be done after development of the wall. It'll certainly be challenging to get down there, but it'll certainly be possible to go down there. To your point, if remedial actions need to be taken.
Okay. I'm going through my list. I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Siddell. Questions, any other commissioners? All right, Commissioner Bashan.
One more. You had mentioned at some point after the first course of the block is put in that there would be some kind of plantings done at that time, and it almost sounded like you were suggesting that they'd take root before the rest of the wall was built. Maybe I misinterpreted that.
No, what I wanted to clarify, and I apologize if it was not clear. You do not need to wait for the wall to be built to stabilize. What I'm saying is, you would essentially excavate out your foundation layer. You can basically set your first layer of block. I was giving an example to say that, you can at any point in that time, you can stabilize any of your temporarily disturbed areas that are upslope of the erosion control upslope. So in other words, if the disturbance associated with and I say the first block because there will be active disturbance associated with the installation of the first course of blocks. Once active disturbance is complete and you are no longer in need to disturb any of the areas directly associated with that wall, installation, that area can be temporarily stabilized with jute matting or something like that. So once the first block is laid, then you can essentially stabilize. And the DEP, Department of Energy Environmental Protection guidelines associated with this is you would do temporary stabilization for within 24 hours of a undisturbed area, and then permanent. It's called permanent stabilization, but it's essentially permanent temporary stabilization, not fully vegetated within 7 days.
But as you're going, there'd be nothing vegetated in there upslope. It would just be fill, correct?
Yes, I'm speaking specifically about the outside, the wetland side of the wall. Yes,
That's
downslope.
what I thought you were referring to.
I apologize. I was referring to downslope beyond the erosion control, upslope.
Oh,
So my apologies.
so it's all downslope of the wall.
Downslope of the wall.
Where the construction will occur on that side, or will it be constructed primarily from the other side?
The only time that you will be, disturbing the area on the downslope side of the wall will be for the first course of the foundation and first course of block insulation. Once that first course is complete, you can temporarily stabilize the downslope portion in between the erosion control and the wall, and that can be temporarily stabilized for the duration of the project, and we can begin the process of the erosion control seed mix, and then very quickly after the installation of the live stakes.
The type of modular wall requires no concrete, no footings, no rebar.
The one we have, we don't have any specifically. The ones that are being proposed, the modular blocks that are being proposed would not have concrete or that type. That is not what is, that's not the most cost-effective use. That's not the most cost-effective block for this type of use.
Then I would just invite Mr. Paskowitz, because I didn't mean to cut him off as much as I might have as well. If he wants to comment on what I was saying. You should do it
Is
now.
Alan still online?
Yes.
Yes, I am. I just feel that they've given us enough supporting evidence of the project and the process of it doing it well. And I hope we don't continue to try to micromanage with questions the project process, which I'm hearing more of in detail. So I think we should kind of continue to move on and try to come to a conclusion and finalize this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Comes to that point where we have to make a determination whether a public hearing is required. Typically, public hearing is required if there's significant impact. I've seen in the engineer's report, we're gonna have to clear all the trees from the buffer area. Substantial soil disturbance on the hillside. Concerns about the E&A measures. Disturbance area is 33,000 square feet plus 2,600 cubic yards of fill. Everything, in my opinion, reads as significant. I'll let the other commissioners make comment. Commissioner Bashan.
I agree with everything you just said, but and also just for the reason this is the third time we're hearing the same application, I just wonder if there would really be any public interest because there's no residential housing nearby. But I do agree with what you said.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Is in the regs, is it specifically to the wetland or is it to the upland review area? Significant
I believe
impact.
it's both because disturbances in the upland review area have the potential.
If it's both, then we should have a hearing. I would agree with you.
Just on the safe side.
All right, so then can I get a motion that a public hearing is required for this application, IW 2622 or 2-2, please? All right, I'll make the motion that a public hearing is required for IW 26-2. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I oppose.
Any opposed? Sorry, what was that?
I oppose.
David?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Any
oppose
abstentions?
as well.
Okay, 2 opposed. And 5 in favor. So motion passes. We'll set a public hearing. We'll move on to the next item then.
Sure, public hearing needs to be stated for the date, and the next meeting is March 17th.
So we will have the public hearing March 17th.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you mentioned earlier about a third-party opinion. Is that still
Yes.
in play?
Yes,
All right,
yes.
good.
Moving on, then we'll go to old business. Seeing none, and next item is public participation on non-agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak? None in the room. Anybody online, Chris?
No.
Very good. Next item, communications and reports. Agent communications, looks like we got a Connecticut Land Conservation Council document.
Yes, that document was a letter sent through the commission. That organization would think of making their presence known to you to see if you were interested in becoming a member of their conservation council.
Commission members, have you had a chance to look at this letter, this invitation to join?
Yes, I have.
Your opinion, should we join or not?
I don't have an opinion at this point. I'd like to hear from the other commissioners.
I did not look into it, so.
This is my first time looking at it.
All right.
You do not have to decide on this tonight.
Yeah. So the due schedule in here, Chris, I imagine this based on our operating expenses, right?
Correct, the commission's operating expenses.
We're
It would be
under,
$100.
okay, so we're under 10,000. What is our budget, by the way, do you know?
We are in the neighborhood of
Small.
6,000, maybe 6,500. The majority of it is the minutes. And there's a small amount of money for meetings and subscriptions and for attendance at seminars and the like.
I gave it a quick read. It sounds like something I would be in favor of. We'll let other commissioners read this and we'll pick it up again at the next meeting.
And just as a reminder, you are a member of Caggerwood. Caggerwood, I think it's pronounced. We renewed that membership last year.
All right.
What do we get out of that? Any free attendance to any of the meetings or anything?
You get a newsletter.
Okay. Are we getting that sent to it? Or is that being regularly?
I believe you have to go onto their website to access it. I could
Make a link to it. Yeah.
Frankly, sometimes I get busy and I don't. There's reduced entries to various other events, if you're a member of it. And you don't have to be an individual member. A member of the commission is enough. Look at the website, honestly. Take a look at it and see if there's anything in it that's interesting to you. They coincidentally are located in the same place as this particular fire comes from. The COVID house in Middletown seems to be the office of several of these types of organizations. I suspect they share staff.
Any other major communications for us?
Yeah. There was an agent approval for 135 Meadow Street. The house had an above grade deck and they are closing the deck into a 3-season room. So the footings had to be increased from 8-inch diameter tubes to 12-inch diameter cellular tubes. They chose not to cellular tube, they chose to do some sort of a concrete block footing. But it was a minor impact and it's in the upper review area. So we did an agent approval on that. And we also finalized the agent approval for 40 Commerce Court. That was the application that came into you in December for the enclosing the carport. And they wanted to then enclose the carport on the other side of the building that was not part of the application. So I had called you on the phone about that and we did agent approval on that. It is on the far side of the building from the wetland, but it is still within the upper review area for the detention pond. So it was a pretty minor application. And that is all I have.
Okay. Now I know we set a date for a public hearing and we did have a request from the public to update our regulations to include signage for public hearings.
It has not been done yet.
Right, so, I know we formed a subcommittee and we were gonna get a copy of the model
They were
regulations.
delivered to the 3 subcommittee members back last summer at some point. I can sort through it because I had my staff deliver it.
Committee, really? Subcommittee members, I believe Keith,
Yeah,
you remember?
you did deliver them because they're sitting on my desk.
And I think Dave Wemmett is the 3rd.
All right, Dave, did you get a copy of the model regulations?
Yes.
You did, okay. All right, and did they highlight what the changes were compared to
I
our
read them
current
so long
regulations?
ago, I have honestly forgotten what is different.
Okay. All right.
I took a look at them at the time and, you know,
So what should our next steps be to get those regulations?
the subcommittee needs to review those model regulations and our own regulations and see which of our regulations they want to adjust. I'm gonna call it amend, might be a better word. And I think that one of the keys that I've discovered in looking through these more as I've been on this committee this last year or so is we have disconnects in our regulations that are the result of previous amendments. So if you amend a regulation, for instance, this is where the sign issue came up. So we had a regulation at one time where a sign likely was required and then it was removed, but there's a reference to it in another section. Same sort of thing with like the abutters notices. It's clear that we require the applicant supply the abutters notice addresses to us, but they no longer have to actually send a notice out, nor does the town. Well, there's no reason to have asked them to supply that information if there wasn't once an intent to have a letter sent out to the individual abutters. So like with the Laurel Court, we didn't notify them by mail because we're not required. We're only required to advertise in the newspaper under the current regulations.
Regulations don't stipulate that we have to note that regardless if it's the town or the applicant, that the abutters have to be notified.
Currently, we do not need to send them a letter.
That's not in the
Neither does the
regulations.
applicant.
So if we adopted the sign thing, I think we would adopt the
My point is,
butter notification.
we need to look at these disconnects and fix those. Because again, there's no reason to have an applicant supply the butters notification information if we don't send them a letter. So either remove the one or add in the other. But I think we need to make a more thorough review of our regulations and not just address the public sign notice.
Yeah, it seems like it's asking for trouble to expect the applicant to notify the abutters.
Right.
They're not gonna notify them if they are not required to.
Yeah.
And again, neither is staff. You know, if there's nothing in the reg that says we have to do it. In this case, the commission requested it, so we sent a letter after that first meeting to the abutters, or maybe it was the second meeting on that one, I forget. So they did receive a letter after the commission requested it, because I'm not gonna tell you no.
So we could request that anytime there's any application or just on a public hearing application?
Well, I think it needs to be something more substantial than 33 Laurel Circle. Just my opinion. And I would also take into account something like Casadoro. The adjoining property owners within a reasonable radius is the shopping center. And if we send them the letter.
It could also be state of Connecticut too, right?
Well, sure, you
The
could
turnpike.
also notify DOT, and so those would be the 2 closest property owners. And you see either of them coming to the meeting. So we spent the time and the effort to put the letter out and send it to mail. Even a certified letter is now something like $7. Not that that's a huge amount of money in our budget, but to me, it's wasted money, and I don't tend to do that.
But whether or not they show up, I think we still have to do diligence and notify abutters.
If we put it in our regulation, yes.
All right, so I'll ask the subcommittee members, start reviewing those model regulations. See how we want to modify our regulations. Move on, I guess, next item, or also Chris, move on to council. All right, town council liaison communications.
Let's try to put town councils.
Right. You guys already know what my big ask is.
Are you ready for budget season? That's my ask.
Oh, we're always ready for budgets.
I'm glad you are.
Biannual budget. The state does it.
This is true.
Oh, you have no idea what a pain in the ass that would be for me. I'm just saying that on the record, using that language. So
Yeah.
I'm not in favor.
So for our online commissioners, when our audio visual issues were occurring, I did make a strong request to our town councilors to get these issues addressed once and for all. And I think they're going to give us some help.
Yeah, I think we both made notes that,
You saw a look on your face.
it is, it's
know,
frustrating
yeah,
for everyone.
and-
We understand that.
Yeah, it's not a good look for the applicants either.
It's
for our
not a good
town.
look for the town.
So, well, there's really not a whole lot to report. Yes, we are in budget season. We've received the Board of Ed budget. We are waiting another 2 weeks. Beginning of March is when we'll receive the town manager's budget, which we will meticulously review. Other than that, prior to the last council meeting, which was last Tuesday, we had a special joint meeting between the town council with the town manager, of course, in attendance, and the Permanent Municipal Building Committee to get some information about work and have discussion about the Chapman Street facility, old Fire Company number 3, and also a discussion of the animal shelter here in Newington, proposals discussion. So that will be ongoing. Other than that, at our regular meeting, we heard about, we actually had an overview from Bill DeMayo and staff on their enterprise fund. You know, we hear a lot about that. We hear the phrase, and we were very eager to get more of a definition and hear exactly how this came about. And he did they both did a great job of explaining it with PowerPoint slides, gave me a lot more insight. I don't know, Gail, you can speak to it as well. Other than that, not much more. We're, again, on the cusp of budget season, and we're going to be working on that diligently over the next couple of months. So
My
Gail,
wife and I attended one of the council meetings where there was a presentation by a consultant for traffic safety cameras.
yes.
Is the town taking any action on that?
Yes. We approved for the town manager to go out for an RFP to which doesn't mean that, we're going to be committed or we're definitely going to do it, but certainly is a step in the right in that direction to get the RFP for vendors who would be willing to install what they call it, the red light / speeding cameras in town.
Yeah, the presentation, it seemed like a no-brainer.
Right.
Surrounding towns have already done it.
Right.
West Hartford, if I tag a couple of you on a post that West Hartford,
Weathersfield.
they have millions of dollars. Middletown, I've heard, they got millions of dollars in revenue coming in now from their cameras. So it seems like everybody else is moving right along with this.
When you mention that, though, just because I know there has been some pushback by people that saying, oh, it's just a money grab project. And it really isn't. I mean, the police department, the police chief is very much in favor of this. It's a safety issue. It's a safety issue.
Yeah. That young man that spoke, I think he was a resident of Brooklyn, travels between Newington and Brooklyn. The conditioning that takes place when they know that there's a camera and they are slowing down. I was just in Phoenix and Scottsdale, and the Apple Maps would tell you that there's red light cameras, speed cameras coming up, and everybody's behaving. It's amazing how well everyone behaves when they're driving, when they know that those cameras are there.
just for traffic lights or do you have them for speed as well?
Well, they have options
Do
where
both.
you can mount
Oh, they
them
do
also.
both?
You can do
Yeah,
both, yes.
speed, noise. So these
Oh, God.
clowns with the fart cans on their cars.
The shotgun.
Yeah,
mufflers.
they can pinch them. School buses, they can tie into the school bus system. So if anybody passes a school bus with the stoplight split, they will.
I don't know how I feel about that, like Big Brother, but I agree. The roads are a free-for-all though. And people have no respect for the laws. So I'm not worried about myself, but
I'll tell you, once you've been injured by a vehicle, you know how important it is.
I've seen the one in Middletown in action. I travel that route frequently. And it was a 65 plus mile an hour road. It's a 4-lane state highway. Undivided, 2 lanes each direction, downhill slope going into Middletown.
undivided 65 miles an hour.
It's 65 miles of travel. It's 45 miles an hour posted.
Oh,
So they're going down the hill into Middletown. This is Washington Street, Route 66. And at the bottom of that hill is a stoplight that used to just get skidded through on a routine basis. The behavior now is still 65 miles an hour until you approach. And keep in mind, the speed limit at the camera drops to 35.
Wow.
Right. But the motor vehicle travel is coming to that. There's a big apartment building on the right side. That's the landmark. The first warning sign is there. 65 to 35. Through the camera zone, probably get stopped at that red light now. Travel on their merry way, but it is amazing to see.
Right.
So there are signs that warn you that these cameras are there.
Yeah, and the cameras are where the pedestrians are gonna be, so it's.
In this case, it's the hill. And to give Middletown some credit, when they did theirs, they knew that the residential neighborhood to the north, there is not any, roundabout way to get on the south. They put a camera up there too. And they caught a lot of people trying to go around Route 66 by that way.
So 100% in favor. It's a no-brainer. Do it.
Well, there will be certainly a public hearing once we get to that point, so I encourage your
But
attendance.
if you're looking at an RFP, I'd ask you to please include the school buses in that and the sound detection.
We can do that.
Just that sound. I had one question for you ladies. Are you done with your?
I have one more
Go ahead if you-
about, obviously, I think many of you know how many commissions and committees and whatever we have in town. And many of them are, defunct already. Their purpose has been served. So we are creating a subcommittee to study committees.
Committee closure committee?
Yeah, whatever.
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah, to really review every single one of them.
So it'll be a subcommittee of the town council, and then a recommendation will be brought back to see if any should be closed and or combined or no longer necessary.
Can I just ask one question? It's
Sure.
kind of unrelated, but kind of related because it's a pond. What is the official position on ice skating in Newington now? I mean, we just could have had 3 weeks of foot-thick ice, and there's a sign there that says thin ice. So the sign is just totally arbitrary. They might as well just say there's no skating ever instead of saying thin ice or danger, something like that. Have you guys heard any policy or you get involved with that at all? Or
I haven't heard anything. I
Newington's not the
skated
only
all-
town.
I grew up in town and I skated and didn't fall through the ice once. But I'm sure that has to do with, I shouldn't make
Liability,
assumptions,
of course.
liability.
Yeah, of course,
But that's something we could look into because I think about that every well, not every winter, because most
Some
winters we can walk in the water, not on the ice, but
And I do think, because I've been thinking about it too, but back in the day,
Yeah, it was
it's
such a
as much,
pastime.
it's a litigation issue. I mean, there's certainly litigation, the condition of the ice. I mean, the fire department used to actually flood it
make
and
it
whatever.
smooth, yeah.
I do remember there were skating supervisors, so that's a budgetary concern. You can't have people going out there unsupervised, quite frankly, because of liability. So it would have some budget implications along with
But it was such a
safety
pastime. You see
liability.
the pictures of the old days, the whole the whole town was there.
Right.
There
It was a
there
different
was
time.
skating at Mill Pond, there was skating at Churchill Park
Mhm.
Pond, there was skating at
I
Star
still go,
Pond.
so,
Yeah,
you know.
Right.
if they-
we can look into it, you know, I'd like to hear what the response is. But it's missed. I also miss the sliding and the skiing at, Indian Hill.
They still do that too.
On the back end, not on the end that goes to Willard Avenue. They shouldn't be doing it on the end that goes
Yeah,
down to Willard
which is
Avenue.
where we used to
Yeah,
do it,
Yeah,
but
they mostly are by the clubhouse now.
Right.
yeah, I think that's probably,
Officially, I think it's not allowed, but I don't see anyone throwing them out.
and might be a lot of cross-country rather
Right,
than
right.
any downhill.
Would have been a good year for cross-country skiing.
It was.
Yes.
yeah.
It was a good year for it.
Watch the Olympics during the daytime. That's the only thing that's on all day.
Anything
I
else
just-
that,
Oh, well, I just make a comment. I don't know, I hate to do this, but I know one thing when we have committees or subcommittees and we say, okay, well, why don't you take a look at it? If you don't give like a deadline to this subcommittee for the regulations.
Put a
because-
shock collar on.
But no, I mean, let's face it, it's been like over, I think, a year, because I remember I'm the one that was jumping up and down about the signs, but maybe if you can just say, within, I don't know, 2 months or 3, I just kind of give a deadline so that we're not having this conversation a year from now.
anything else? Any other questions?
I will make one more comment I should have made under my report. I have spoken to IT and they will be available to do a presentation on what they can do for BAT products at the March meeting. So I put them on the agenda for that.
So they'll be here for the March meeting?
Well,
Okay.
Monique, if not Scott. as well.
Okay, so you'll have your IT support, Jeff.
I'm not sure how much of this nonsense she deals with, but it wouldn't hurt to have her. This is really a Scott thing. And the sad thing was, he and I were down here together, making sure everything was working. In fact, that's why I was late opening up the building, because we're sitting here at 6:45 and we hear the applicants pounding on the door. I'm like, the hell time is it? They usually unlock the building at 6:30. And so we were all set, ready to go. Everything's supposed to be working. And then it just glitches.
And I don't know if we're lucky, but Scott Hoagland is at almost every single one of our town council meetings. So if there's ever, any hint of a problem going on,
He's my
right over
phone
there.
He
Yeah,
told me what buttons to push.
Yeah.
I said, what's it doing? I said, doing this. All right,
but
try
it does.
that.
It's frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for all of you. It's frustrating for those
applicants.
at home. So it's good. You're looking into it. Thank you. Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Pond Life Research and Education.
Yes, Jeff. I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Bashan brought up as well. I walked around the pond, not recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was wondering why it wasn't cleared and being utilized. So now I'm hearing that it's a possible liability issue. And are there any funds for it to clear it and continue using it as a place for the public? That's my interest. Because I grew up in this town and it was always open to use during the ice being evaluated for its thickness and safety. I'd like to see that move forward. That's all I have to say today.
Sure, the ice is a foot thick right now.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
welcome.
Motion to adjourn,
Make a motion to adjourn.
second. Second from Commissioner Morris, all in favor? Aye. Good night. John Bishop.
Oh, you know, I second. Yeah.
I don't know if I can bring